Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 280th episode of the Drink Sick with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of the drink.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. If you haven't been here before and this is your first time, if you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're listening to this on any of our audio platforms, please give us a 5-star rating. And please download this episode and more episodes as well. So I want to say on the 280th time, thank you so much to all of my guests and all of the PR publicists and managers who I've worked, trusted this podcast to for helping. And also, I want to thank you, all of you who watch or listen to the podcast. Thank you so much. All righty. Now I got that out of the way. I'm very excited to bring up my guest for this 280th episode. She's a music industry veteran and the co-founder of the artist-centric record label Willow Sound Records, and she's the author and author of the You and the Music Business book, and also a podcast as well. So please help me welcome Tara Shannon to the podcast.
Hello. Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. 280 is a good number. I like that number.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you, Tara. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to speak with me, and let's get started, shall we? All righty. So the first question, when did you get interested in performing, and how did that passion evolve into desire to pursue a career in the entertainment industry?
Such a great question. Well, I was one of those kids that started studying piano when I was really little and fell in love with music in general. And that led me to a path of being a classically trained performer on piano. And then I studied jazz saxophone. And I went to McGill University in Montreal, Quebec here. And I was headed on a path to perform. And then I wrote my first song. And I wrote a song for my cousin's wedding. And I don't recommend to people that you write your very first song and then present it to somebody on their most special day of their life. But it worked out for me. But in my coaching work, I'm like, not a good idea to do that. So yeah, and when I started writing, I fell in love with the process of songwriting. And then I was like, I want to be a singer-songwriter. And I just felt like, the resonance in that for me was just really strong. And so that sent me down a path of, chasing this thing called being a recording artist and, chasing this other thing called a record deal and getting signed, which this was, decades ago. And so I had zero understanding of the music business. I was just like listening to what people were saying. Oh, this is what you need. You need to get signed, or, you need a record deal. You need to be on tour. And so I chased that and was offered a record deal with a startup label connected to a bigger label in the States. And I had 3 young kids at the time. And I had no idea that what would be required of me, time away from my family and being on the road all the time, would be in direct conflict with what I felt like my first calling was being a mom. And so I changed course. I was like, I can't do any of the things that you want me to do. And then I just focused on songwriting and built a niche for myself, writing songs for organizations in partnership with organizations for events. And yeah, kind of stayed in it that way, and then started my label. I took a break from music for a little bit because I have 7 children. So I went on to have 4 more. So I have 5 boys and 2 girls. And so, and then they got into competitive hockey. We're Canadian. So, and so that really, really took up a lot of, obviously a lot of my time. And in about 2014, I came back to music full time because I just, I was really unhappy and I ran into some health issues. And then I realized that, I feel much better and I feel much more like myself, kind of like you were talking about how alive you feel doing this kind of work, that you just love it so much. And it just makes us feel, complete in who we are. And so music does that for me. And so, yeah, so I had to find my way back to it and started a label. And here I am 10 years later.
It's amazing how that story, full circle moment, is just amazing. Like, you find your passion, your passion goes out, so life presents itself to you, and then however, when your toughest moments, your passion returns, and you feel exuberant again, and renews you.
Yeah, exactly. And my in my coaching, I say a lot, what's your why? why are you doing what you're doing? And so for me, my why changed. Like early on in my career path, my why was success, defined by things like charts or units sold, because we didn't have the internet back then. There was no streaming. You actually had to sell physical copies, ticket sales, that kind of thing, or being on a tour bus, or being a rock star, whatever the validation mechanism was. But later, when I came back to it after facing a health crisis, my why changed, because I'm like, it's not so much about getting on a tour bus or being a rock star. Like, that's fine and fun and all that, but this is a much bigger reason now. It was the recognition that it was just, music is just woven into the fabric of who I am, and I just need to be expressing it somehow. And so the way that I validate it was internal now, not external, by reaching some milestones. It was just a feeling of balance and joy in my life.
And I gotta say, that's amazing. That's incredible. And I gotta say this, this is like a road for you. Like, my why has changed so much. Like, I remember saying I wanted to destroy Perez Hilton or TMZ because they just literally, when they came out, they destroyed the entertainment industry, news structure. But however, at the same time, I'm like, I'd rather be a conversationalist. I want to be remembered for inspiring people, or sitting down with inspiring people as well. So all across the industry, some of them who are on some, or while some of them, or and other guests of mine are on their path, have found their taste of stardom and found their thing. So so I agree with you. My why has changed.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that instinct. You're looking at, because we're kind of wired to be competitive, in general, in our society, but also in these spaces and in the entertainment space. There's only so many spots for people. But in the examples you gave, those types of shows, they feed on content that has a different energy about it. It's more like rooted in like gossip and tidbits of information that people just, we're so addicted, as a culture, to this kind of information sometimes. And having inspiring conversations with people where you're truly connecting and learning about people and who they are and what they're about takes longer. It takes longer to absorb that kind of content. And so it's, it doesn't flit through the internet as quickly. It's a little bit, and so we always joke at the labels, like we make these, we come up with these storyboards and these, incredible, like, artistic directions for music videos. And we pour our heart and our budgets into these music videos, and a cat video gets 5 million views in like 20 seconds.
Oh yeah, and I'm like, sometimes I don't know why people love cats. Versus, I value music than cat videos.
I'm with you. I am with you.
Alrighty, so I got talked about some. I want to talk. You mentioned this earlier, but I want to talk about Willow Sound Records. So, how does how did you start the label, and how has the label stand out in a competitive music industry?
Yeah, it's great question. Originally, like, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So I've started my first business when I was 16, and I, with my kid's dad, we started a company in his industry, which is transportation, and grew it into a big, multi-million-dollar, 125 employees kind of thing. So entrepreneurship is a big part of who I am. So when I was getting ready to put out music, I didn't want to just put out music. I was like, well, of course, I have to start a label to put out the music. And so it started that way. It's called Willow Sound because on my property, there were 2 huge, beautiful willow trees, and everything about me is trees. So it made really good sense. There's a lot of healing energy with willow trees too. And I felt like I was in that phase of my life, it's like really reclaiming myself and the parts of me that I sort of lost under wife, business partner, mother, all the other, titles that we wear. So I started it just to put my record, but I was doing a lot of coaching, consulting for artists, and teaching them the core principles of business and how to build a sustainable living around their art. And so there was a core group of artists that I had been working with for a long time and developing. And so Willow Sound evolved into, we're an artist co-op label. So we're 5 artists, and we share the responsibility together. We support each other together. So it's not a traditional financial structure that labels typically have with talent. It's more reflective of the environment today. Because to your point, you don't really need a label anymore. Like artists really, the word label has really changed in what its role is. It used to be the label was the bank, and the distribution lanes and the marketing and the promotion and the talent and the development of talent. And that's completely shifted. And now with streaming and the digital space and how we consume music now, you don't really need a label. What you need is to understand marketing and how to build an audience and, promotional stuff. And so we're a full service agency. So I'm not just doing distribution for these artists. I'm also management, and we're co-published together. And then I do management services for other artists. So we're kind of like a one-stop shop. We do a lot of different things for different artists, and mostly a lot of coaching right now.
I gotta say that gives you a lot of people a lot of times, because, for example, I'd rather do like a small label, which is like, yes, it's small, but it's also mighty, compared to labels that are world renowned. And at the same time, they have 40,000 people, and you don't know which of the 40,000 people you're working with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, they're totally different animals, like in business in general, no matter what the product is or what industry, you're going to get sizes of businesses that are, like one-stop shops, a mom and pop shop, one person self-employed, a couple of employees, that kind of thing. So, our label is definitely, we are small, but definitely mighty. And also, the strategies to building an audience these days, the successful strategies that smaller labels use is more around microeconomics, that kind of thinking, like taking small amounts of money and doing the most you possibly can with it. So the 1,000 true fans theory, if you've come across that sentence, which is based on an article written back, I think in 2009, which was the idea being that, you need 1,000 true fans. You need 1,000 fans who are going to spend, let's say, $10 a month on you, whether that's a shirt they buy, a Patreon subscription, some way to access you and what you create. You have 1,000 of those, it's like 10 grand a month. And now you're talking 120 grand gross a year that your music is bringing in. And you can start to really be able to make a living with that. So the approach is very different when it's small like that, because you're looking at all the ways that you can find those true fans and filter through the 2.8 million people on Facebook or on Meta in general, and try to carve out like the 1,000 people that love what you do the way you do it. And it sounds simple when you say it out loud. It's challenging to do, but conceptually it really works. These strategies really work to build a solid connection. So I love the smaller environment, like you're saying. The heavy hitters really come in handy for things like distribution, because if you're with a major label, they have access to way more reach as far as distribution and more weight to get your songs on, editorial playlists, for example.
Absolutely. So what are the kind of artists that you and your team are looking for? Like if they want to join your group?
Yeah, so we have different levels. So we, on the coaching level of things, we have strategic planning, social media management, cash management, those kinds of coaching. That's anybody, really, any artist at any level of the game, no matter the genre, no matter the age, because that comes up a lot, that idea that, oh, I'm too old, I've missed my window. And I'm like, no, that's like old language connected to like major label deals. And there was reasons why they focused on younger people, because you need a really long runway to launch an artist internationally or globally. So if they're already 50 or 55, that runway is getting a little shorter. So doesn't matter the age, it doesn't matter the genre, it doesn't even matter the skill level. On the coaching side, I work with all levels, and it's really, my approach is very holistic, and it's about wellness and balance and what's your why and who's going to care about what you do, and finding a plan that works in balance with your life. We talk a lot about money. People don't like talking about money. It's very uncomfortable for people. Often they weren't raised in an environment where there was any discussion about money. So, we talk a lot about money because it's really important to know that it's going to cost money to make music. And so where is that money coming from? So coaching is for everybody. For management services, which is a bit more, there's a niche clientele for that. And that that is worth the investment and really works well for artists that have something going on for themselves. They've got, 30 plus, 50 plus shows a year, they've developed a market, and they're having a hard time keeping up, with all of the admin tasks. And so we provide some support there. And then for the agency part, we're 5 of us now in 5 different genres of music. So we're not really looking for any more people for that. I have a really special group of people that we work with together. That being said, though, a lot of management services clients that we work with, or, I've had artists reach out that, have a lot going on. But for me to say yes, I have to really believe that I'm actually bringing something to the table, that I'm the right fit for them, and that I can help move the needle for them. And if not, I sometimes help out just to connect them with the people that I believe could, are in a better position to really help that artist. So we take it on a case by case basis and try to offer support and meet the artist where they're at in their journey.
I think that's fabulous, Tara. I think that's fabulous. And like, I admit, a lot of times I pick guests based on their social media. As I got older, when I started out, I'm like, okay, I'll talk to everybody. But like, when you grow and get bigger and everything like that, I agree with you. You can be more selective. And that's why at times I have to turn people away, because they're not meeting my minimum social media requirements. Because you need an audience to help me distribute. I can't just do all the work.
Yeah, that's really important. And you're helping to educate people along the way, because one of the core principles that I teach about in workshops, or if I'm speaking on panels and stuff, is what business is. And business at its core is trade. It's trade. So what's the trade? If somebody wants to be on your podcast or in your environment that you've worked really hard over 280 episodes now since 2019 to build this thing that has momentum. If I come to you and I have 0 audience, the trade isn't even. What's the trade, right? Unless then there's a model, like a financial model, where they're paying you to be on your podcast, because that makes it fair trade then. So people really need to understand, what do they bring to the table? And so does it feel like a fair trade? And if it isn't a fair trade without a transaction of money, then sometimes a transaction of money can help it be more fair.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to get to your book, because this is a conversation, is a perfect segue to your book, because in addition to your musical endeavors, you also wrote You and a Business, a self-care guide to finding balance and joy in today's music industry. So you and I have been going back and forth for the past couple of minutes and said about talking about that, but can you please describe your writing process? Because that book, I think, would be hugely beneficial to our audience.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you for saying that. I certainly hope so. The book really came as a result of thousands of hours of coaching, because I started to notice patterns, like was just saying the same thing sort of over and over again. I was like, then I had that thought where I was like, oh, I wonder if I should write a book one day. I can't honestly say I grew up, dreaming that I was going to write a book. I mean, I'm a writer by trade, but I'm a songwriter first. So what was really fun about the writing process of a book is it's so much more expansive, because in songwriting, especially commercial songwriting, you have such a small amount of real estate in order to tell your story in a way that creates an emotional connection with the listener. So this kind of writing, I felt like so free. I was like, oh my God, I have an entire chapter that I can tell this. This is fantastic. So I really enjoyed that part of the writing process. I mean, the book lived in my head for years, like even chapters and organization. I think I was writing it in my head for a long time before I ever got to my keyboard to sort of spit it out. So I loved the writing process. The book really, the inspiration for the book is it's got one foot in self-help and it's got another foot in the music business, but it's also creative industries. Surprisingly, some of the feedback I'm getting is people who've read it that don't do music, but they do like art or like painting or dance or other creative industries, and they found a lot of the information useful. So even though that's my sector and it's what I focus on, it speaks to anybody wanting to live a life in balance and in connection to the creative part of themselves, whatever that creative industry might be. And I really wanted to create something for people that gave them a sense of validation. so that they weren't like, even if they were just sort of puttering around, or they're a hobby musician, or they've been grinding it out and slugging it out there with no, perceived industry success, that they had like a coach in their back pocket, somebody saying, or a champion saying to them, if you're getting up every day and you love what you do, and you're just leaning into that process, then you're on the right path. Like, you don't have to wait, because we're kind of like, we talked about, these award shows and stuff like that, and we get all of this sort of these discovery and talent platforms. So we're kind of inundated with this sort of old messaging, this old belief system, and these talent shows that are like, you need to grind it out until somebody with power discovers you, plucks you from the masses, and elevates you to stardom and makes all of your dreams come true, right? It's the Cinderella story that just gets told over and over again. There's nothing inherently wrong about that. But from a business standpoint, like, that's not how you build a business. Like, if we were going to be business partners in a coffee shop, we wouldn't just like make coffee and give it to our friends and family and hope that Starbucks discovered us. Like, if I told you that's the business model, that's what you have to do, you'd be like, Terry, you're nuts. That's not how you make it in the coffee world, because it's so obvious to us what the business steps are. But in music, for some reason, kind of common sense tends to go out the window a little bit, because we have this sort of Cinderella story hanging over our heads all the time. And so I really wanted something that people could have in their hands to be like, that is a way. That way doesn't lead to a lot of joy and happiness, because it's very disempowering. And it's important to understand the mechanisms of those shows. Why do they exist? And how does the money flow in those environments? So you really understand what that's about. And if that can fit for your plan, excellent, wonderful. Same thing with, partnering with a major label. If you understand the financial structure of that, and that's a perfect fit for you, great, wonderful. But you need to understand the mechanics of it all. And so that's the one foot in the music business. It's not like, this is how you make it in the music business, or this is how you become a star, because to me, we can come up with more powerful language, more empowering language. So my book is like, here's the core principles of business. Doesn't matter if you're selling shoes or music or muffins. The core principles are the same. So I lay out the core principles. And then along that path, this is how you take care of yourself along the way. Your mind, your heart, your emotional well-being. This is how you navigate social media and stay intact while you're trying to use this tool. So it kind of floats between both. And really what it comes down to, the book is about, to be successful in the business of music, you first need to be successful in the business of you. And one of my artists who read it first, she was in tears at the end of the book, and she said, this made me feel peaceful and powerful at the same time. And that's what I was going for.
And that's amazing too. And I've been noticing a lot of conversations in Reddit and like on social media that say, like, shows like The Voice right now haven't seen anybody actually go on and have massive success, except for people like Morgan Wallen or Melina Martinez and Chris Mann, who've done that. And then not to mention the fact that, like, the only one big winner, Cassie Pope, had some kind of airplay. And then when you have people like saying American Idol, it's a different time and everything else. And like, there's different things having success. Like, I'm thinking about people like, yes, there's Kelly Clarkson. Yes, if we're bringing X Factor, Leona Lewis. Yes, but however, look at people like Susan Boyle, Jennifer Hudson, Adam Lambert, Clay Aiken, Ollie Murs. Those people have, even though they lost the title round, they've gone on to have success.
Absolutely. Oh my God, we could talk about this all day, because there's so many complex layers to this type of, mechanism for name recognition or starting to build your audience. So the first thing to note is, like, when I tell clients, when they come to me and they're like, I'm going for the Voice audition, and I was like, okay, that's great. Here's some things you need to understand. And so the show none of these shows are about you. They're not designed to help you specifically. They are selling the story of discovery to their audience. And that audience is more tied to the advertisers and the network and how the money flows there than you. You're just kind of like a byproduct. So if you're okay with that, then you can go through that environment and not have it destroy you. Because I have seen artists so damaged by the process of these kinds of discovery shows, because they go into it believing this is it, this is my big chance, this is my big break, I'm going to be discovered and everything's going to get easier. And it's nothing could be further from the truth, even if you do win, like you mentioned. And really smart ones realize you don't have to win, you just have to know how to take that opportunity and make it work for you, no matter what. So you have your business plan and your vision for success. You define what success means for you. And then you look at that opportunity and go, wonder what I could do with, making it to the semifinals on this show and having 10 million people hear my name. What would I do with that afterwards? And that's the other piece too, is people think, oh, it's so easy. Well, if they win or they're in the top 3, well, they will automatically build an audience. Nope. Because the audience they are fans of the show. That's why they're there. So migrating them into becoming a fan base for you, some will trickle over, but it's not this automatic process that happens. So you need people who really know what they're doing, like those partnerships with managers and labels, to take that little opportunity as a seed, and really grow something from it. But it's not easy. And it's also not for the faint of heart, because it can be quite a journey for artists, because we're very sensitive. Artists are very sensitive people. That's why we can write songs about the world and what's happening. So when our hearts are exposed like that, it can be tough.
1,000,000% true. And not just artists, but also podcasters as well, especially. There have been times I have been denied no's because of how small my platform is or something.
Okay.
So I totally respect that. So I totally understand. And I think, but right now, I think if everyone grows and everything continues to slowly grow, like the thing is, I have 2 of my biggest heroes in media, Regis Philbin and Barbara Walters. And even though they both passed on, they've had careers that's been 50 to 60 years.
Amazing. I love hearing who your heroes are. That's the people that inspired you in journalism. That's incredible. But you're right.
Also media as well. But like the thing is, I'd rather see myself be a long part of the conversation instead of like people like have these social media personalities or YouTube personalities that last for 2 years and then they fizzle.
Yep. Same idea for audiences with artists, right? It's like this, that's the vanity metrics versus conversion metrics. So vanity metrics is like, I got 1 million views on my video, or I have 100,000 followers on Instagram, whatever. And I'm like, that's great. It sounds great to say, but what's your conversion rate? Like how many of those people are buying a t-shirt or buying a ticket to your show or streaming your music, right? Because the conversion rate is what really matters.
Absolutely. And I'm still, even I've been in this industry for 14 years, I'm still learning about that.
Well, you're doing great. You're still standing.
Thanks, Tara. Appreciate it. So you and the music business is not just a book. It's also a podcast. So, and I want to congratulate you and your team wrapping up your 2nd season. So why should my listeners check out your podcast?
Because we're so fun. If you want to laugh a lot, I do this podcast with Jessica Pearson. She's a folk Americana artist. Jessica Pearson in the East Wind. She's our producer. This was her idea. She really wanted to do a podcast. She's on my label Willow Sound too, and she does coaching for us as well. And Sam Stone, who's the other artist that does. Now, I've known Sam since she was 8 years old. We've worked together in music for a long time. And Jess, I've known for, over 10 years now. And we are like for real 3 girlfriends that get together, drink wine, and just, talk and talk about everything. So the podcast, that's the vibe. It's just an extension of that. It's also like no nonsense. Like we don't try. We're just like straight shooters. And we're just like, here's the actual deal from 3 artists who've been working in the industry for decades. Like, if this is how you're feeling, if you feel like you're going crazy, it's not you, it's the system, and so it's very like shoot from the hip. It's very like, we laugh a lot. Like, so I would say watch it for that, but also watch it for really good information you can count on. Like people need a source to go for information that is solid, and we really do our research, and also it's what we do all day, every day. So we talk about our personal experiences and our personal challenges and the things we see with clients and stuff. So yeah, it's just fun. We just have a blast.
Awesome. So have you guys thought about your dream guests?
You've got me thinking about my dream guests now. I mean, we're based in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. So, and I sit on the board for an organization called the Ottawa Music Industry Coalition. I'm one of the sort of founding members of this organization, and so we'd probably first start with stories, Ottawa success stories from artists. We have so many to choose from. We have such a vibrant music community. So we've got our sights set on there. But if you're asking me like unreachable, like who would, if my big dream was to have somebody, it would probably be Celine Dion.
Oh yes, absolutely. Celine would be a fabulous one.
I honestly do not fangirl very often. I have not, and I can honestly say that I am a true through and through fan of maybe like maybe.
Looks like we got a special guest.
Oh, so sorry. That's my puppy who's sitting here. We've just moved to a new place, and so he's sitting beside me here because he's quite anxious in the new, and it's all windows, so he just saw a little squirrel. Sorry, guys.
No problem.
Yeah, so Celine Dion I read her book, I watched all the movies, I have every single album, I wanted to be a singer like her. So she's like, if she was in the studio, I probably wouldn't even be able to speak. I'd be like tongue tied and I would be like, she's here, the queen is here.
Oh, believe me, if Celine Dion was also in my studio as well, I would have the hard time composing myself.
Right?
Same with me, if Elton John was in, or Billy Joel, or like, for example, for me, Simon Cowell, who's part of the talent discovery, I would have a very hard time getting over being a fan.
I mean, oh my gosh, yeah, Elton, Billy, totally I was, as a piano player too, top. Simon, I would have an interesting conversation with. I would be like, okay, Simon, let's talk. Let's really talk. I would want to know if he's actually really like that in real life, or is that like a persona that he's put on to create the contrast for the show? And he's been so successful though. So I would want to pick his brain on what he thinks about the whole talent searching thing and why does he think it's beneficial and for artists and stuff. I would definitely be at that dinner table if you'd have.
Absolutely, and I would be there with you. So we'd have to fight. Let's promise that if both of us were in the same room as Simon Cowell, we work together and decide to say, okay, you ask this, Tara, I ask this question, you ask this question, and so that we don't talk over each other.
Deal.
All righty. So Tara, this is my last question. Where can my audience find your book? Where can they connect with you on social media? And where can they find the podcast?
Okay, best place to go is my website, which is booktara.co. And so you can access everything there. You can also on amazon.ca.com, any Amazon, you can just Google search You in the Music Business and it will come up. If you do read the book and you love it, please leave a review. As you know, reviews and subscribe stuff, that is like, internet juice. It makes the internet go round, which is awesome. So booktara.co for everything. On socials, I'm at Work with Tara Shannon on Instagram, at Work with Tara Shannon on Facebook. And of course, on my website, booktara.co, you can check out the coaching that I do. You can email me. We can do a discovery call. And my shows will be listed there too, as I get my live shows up and going for 2024.
Awesome. So guys, have you missed an episode of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast? Visit our channels on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, Spotify, and Spreaker. It's Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. Now, are you on social media? I'm on social media too. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube. Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. And guys, visit the blog that started it all, from my music reviews, from old interviews. Please visit jakes-shake.com. Once again, jakes-shake.com. Tara, thank you so much for taking your time on your schedule to speak with me today on this 288th episode. And guys, thank you so much for all of your support all the years. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, have a great one, everybody. Goodbye.